Okay, so the session will be continued by Emmy Verschuren from the FiMM, that was one of the members of the jury. Emmy.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, Julia called me a sociology interested person. That's the first time I hear this, so I suppose that's a good thing. I get to stand in today to give a couple words, just to bridge between Julio's passion and to make sure that this happens again. This is his wish. He wishes to see this every 2 years, so pressure is on us here. It's been a fantastic experience to be involved in this essay contest. I think what we learned is that everybody's different. Everybody brings something to the table. And interestingly, if you noticed there, the shirt of Julio, he disappeared into nowhere, which I just realized is actually the meaning of the term utopia, which is nowhere, there's no place. And where is no place but between people, between our interactions, our dialogue, our conversations, our education, our way of sharing information, the way EU Life and other life sciences do, in order to further utopic vision. So our essay winners are here with us. Jack here, Leeming, he's going to be chairing the panel discussion. Francis will be following suit and taking questions, and I guess you will introduce our winners, or? Okay, fantastic.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks, Emmy. Right, we're gonna jump up on the stage now, so give us just a second while we all jump on, come on. Thank you. I think we're gonna be using more than one microphone. If they're ready to go, please. Thank you. Yes, yeah. Yes, please. So thank you, everyone. You've had 2 introductions already, so I'll just simply say, hi, I'm Jack, I'm an editor at Nature, and let everyone talk about their winning essays, I think, to kick us off. So I'm joined on stage by Francis, who's a member of a jury, and our 3 fantastic winners. Can I start with you? Evandro, just could you pick up a microphone and tell us a little bit about yourself and your essay? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the introduction. My name is Evandro Ferrada. I'm a researcher in Vienna at the Center for Molecular Medicine, and my field of research is evolutionary biology.
Did you want to say a bit about your essay?
Yes, please, if you wouldn't mind, just a little bit about.
Yeah, I can do that right away.
Just give us a quick summary. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, the essay is a little bit of an exploration of a world where we have solved a lot of the issues regarding sustainability and energy, and the idea was to try to imagine what will happen to science if we live in a world where there was limitless energy.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Miles, and I'm a human being who has studied biochemistry and writing and environmental sustainability, and am still exploring paths to bring my background to bear. I'm from the US and reside in Barcelona, and my essay is based on the principle that in order to find an answer, you first have to be brave enough and humble enough to ask a question. And so it imagines a utopian research institute with an office specifically dedicated to asking questions that might sound foolish. And it's called the Stupid Questions Office.
Thank you. And Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm a research associate at the Polytechnique Montreal in Canada. And I use lasers to study diseases, and I'm passionate about science communication and entrepreneurship. And my essay was about, it starts off in a gruesome way. I won't give away too much. And it involves the protagonist trying to solve a mystery using the power of science and open data.
Thank you very much to all 3 of you, and congratulations again. I should say that you all hopefully have had an opportunity to read them. Please don't start now, but they're all on the Nature website if you're interested in reading them a little bit later. You should have got an email about it, I hope. So thank you. I was going to go to you next, Francis, to just tell us a little bit about the judges' impressions of all of these essays. We sat down, the 5 of us, and chatted about all of the different essays. What did we think of them?
Right, so afternoon everyone. I'm Frances Brodsky, based in London, but came from America 10 years ago to be part of EU science. And unfortunately, the British decided to do Brexit, but at least science is still an EU community, so I appreciate that. Anyway, and as Julio said, I think my qualifications are not cell biology here, but the fact that I published a few novels about bench science some years ago now. Anyway, our impressions. As Julio said, this is really his brainchild, and what he wanted to see was dreams, grand visions, and inspiring things, and maybe some ways to actually get there about how the future of science might look. And that is not what we got. What we got was a little over 300 essays that really look at the next step to fix the current problems that the writers see in science now. And that was a little sobering for us, I would say, in that people were focused on what really needs to change in order for science to work, and not what is the great, grand, big thing that we'll see in the future. Nonetheless, they were hopeful. And I think the other really interesting thing is the demographic of the responders. They were mostly, well, we don't have the numbers, but it reads like they're mostly early career researchers. And that says something. First of all, these people are hopeful. Maybe they have more time to dream. I was a little sorry that we didn't get more responses from senior people. But we had some really interesting themes that and these 3 essays addressed. And they were things like, in these utopic institutes, bureaucracy was eliminated, there was environmental sustainability, they were plant heavy, there was competition was sidelined, a lot of integration into society, which I think Kate's essay addresses really well. They were well-being friendly, lots of female leadership, and maybe that was the only way in which we'll actually get to some of these future utopic societies, diversity inclusive, and really the value of discovery science as well as applied science. And so I think these were all really good themes that were addressed by these new institutes. And we'd really like to have a game plan, but maybe we'll discuss how we get there.
We can chat about maybe how we get to these utopias in the future, but it feels a little bit unfair to throw that question at you guys. All you did was write an essay about what the future might look like. I think something that you touched on there, which I want to explore in this panel, is that your utopias are held back not by science necessarily, but by the rest of the world outside of science. They exist in an imperfect world. I know it's easy to believe we're in a perfect world here. The sun's shining, it's beautiful outside, but really, and I know Manuel, you mentioned this in the context of Russia and Ukraine, we're not in a perfect world, we're in an imperfect world, and really that's the thing I got from these essays, is that they're science trying to help an imperfect world. And I wanted to explore that. Evandro asked you to go first. Katie, your essay ends with that idea, I think. Could you just talk us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think it ends, I can't quite remember precisely,
It's
but
okay.
saying essentially...
I can.
Okay, go ahead.
This is the place our utopia should be built in, not in the imperfect future, but the perfect now, is how your essay ends.
Oh, perfect? Not in the perfect future.
Oh God, wrong way around. Yeah, but you know what I mean.
Perfect now. Yeah, and that's absolutely it. And in terms of any utopia, whether you're talking about scientific utopia or political utopia, utopias look different for different people. One person's utopia could be another person's dystopia. But the fact is we're not on a level playing field, and people are going to have to, people in levels of society where you perhaps have more, are going to eventually have to give up certain things, whether it's time or funding or opportunities for other people to reach a certain stage of equality.
Thank you. Miles, do you have any sort of additional thoughts around building utopias in an imperfect world?
Well, the question is, can there be a utopic part of a dystopic world, or is it possible for this kind of research institution that is perfect and equal and beautiful to exist when the world around is so not that? And I mean, I don't think it is, but we're going to start somewhere, right? So, like,
Completely agree, and I suppose that's why we're here. No pressure to all of you. Evandro, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the most difficult question of all, right? I mean, between these snapshots of our reality and a world as an utopia, right? As we want to imagine. I mean, in my case, I reflected, and I didn't even realize until the end, is that energy is a key factor. I got inspiration from this scientific breakthrough from last year in December, where there's, for the first time, a laboratory in the US was able to carry out under controlled conditions a nuclear fusion reaction. And so that opened, for the first time, the possibility to think of how to obtain a large amount of energy. We're talking about millions of times more than fossil fuel energy to the world, and what that will mean, right? And so there are lots of derivatives and corollaries about this in the news and people thinking about it. So, and it's impressive, right, what comes out of that. So it turns out that, I mean, a conclusion from that to me is that energy on one side is critical, right, in order to advance science. And there are many consequences for that, right, that follow immediately, right? One of them is equality, that we will live in a more equal world, right? People will be more free to think, right, because they will not be constrained by aspects of funding or, being able to adhere to ideas, right? And that will trigger diversity, intellectual freedom, and with that also the sciences and the arts and the humanities probably will also, fuse into an idea of transdisciplinarity.
Thank you. And from that one sort of idea, that's where your writing, it sounds like, started as well, right? That idea that if we had unlimited energy, what would the future look like?
Exactly. Yeah.
Out of interest, you guys, where did you start your writing process? Miles, let's maybe start with you. So, did you have a particular kind of moment or thing that made you sit down and start writing this?
Well, I was really excited about the idea of this essay contest. The idea of dreaming a future and storytelling it into existence. And I think, honestly, my starting point was probably some of my own personal experience of frustrations that I've had in research environments in the past, and a bit of catharsis for me.
Thank you. Katie, where did you start writing? Where did you start when you began that writing process?
I got an email from the Nature Careers subscription, so their newsletter is very worthwhile to sign up for. And initially I thought it was a 10,000 word essay, so I started writing a very long story and then realized, no, it was 1,000 words. So that was changed things a bit. But a lot of it incorporates stuff from my own life. So there's this laser-based tool for detecting and sensing molecules, which is something that I work with. And it's set in Edinburgh, where I did my PhD as well.
Thank you. Frances, we're getting on to writery questions. I think this is your wheelhouse.
So that's great. So it's interesting. So all these essays that we got addressed these themes I mentioned, and I think all of you deal with those themes in different ways. But I think what really appealed to us as a jury is that you're all storytellers, and the reason we responded to your 3 essays is because you each told. You illustrated the situation rather than telling the situation, which is the general rule for writing good fiction. You show but not tell. And so I was wondering, what do you think the role of storytelling is in scientific writing?
If I may, it's storytelling isn't only central to scientific writing. It's central to just human communication and our way of being. And if you sit down to read a paper and it's a list of facts and cliches, and then you're not going to, or you're going to look up half an hour later and be like, wait, what did I read? But if it tells a story, if even the driest academic paper can tell a story, I really believe, then it gives that connection, lets you empathize with the process of discovery, and inspires connections. And I think that's super important.
Thank you. Katie, Evandro, any other sort of thoughts around creative?
I completely agree with Miles. It was like you're reading my mind as you're saying that. But yeah, and I think it's also, when we're talking about communication, it's not necessarily to other scientists as well. It's how the general public interact with science, because not everyone, there's reasons people don't choose not to go into science, but I think almost everyone can relate to storytelling. And the general population, taxes go towards paying for scientific research quite often, particularly in university settings, and also just being able to get people interested in science and not turning a blind eye to the truth.
Just a thought. I was just thinking also about why are we storytelling creatures, and it's probably because there's some evolutionary roots of ours that are so important, right, in the way we relate to each other, and probably we relate best when we see ourselves into other people's stories and way of communicating.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Francis?
Yeah, no, I love to see this amongst the three of you in the next generation, beyond several generations next. And it really, for me, when I started writing fiction, my science writing got way better and my grant writing got way better. And somehow I think this is a good lesson that a lot of what we do is writing and communicating, and both between ourselves and with the public, which is super important.
Yeah, there was a point earlier about using objective, art being subjective and science being objective. Whilst I think that's true, I gave a talk a while ago about using really good writing and art to kind of communicate science properly, right? Using the subjective to better communicate the objective truth that's behind the data. And I think that's worth sort of remembering, and something that's in all of your essays in some way. And how we did the time? We okay? Great. Oh, perfect. Wonderful. All right. In that case, all of the characters in your essays are, I would say, quite senior scientists. I was curious about that. We're in a room of some very senior scientists in amongst us. What role do you think research leaders have to build the utopias of the future, to improve the scientific world? And what role do younger researchers have? I'm open to anyone starting, if anyone's got any strong thoughts on that. If not, I'll pick on one of you. Evandro, go. Thank you.
I think, well, leaders are fundamental, right? We know that they have the power to drive changes. So, I mean, it's clear their role. In my case, the protagonist is a leader simply because that allows to tell the story from a very broad perspective, right? Is the leader who knows several aspects, if not the entire picture, right? She's been interviewed once she is old, right? There's been 50 years already since what happened, and yeah, she has the entire picture, right? It's wisdom talking.
Right. Yeah. Miles, any sort of additional thoughts on that? Your character. I know I'm giving away the twist.
It's all right, I think.
But your character is an extremely senior member of a university, and again, that is a utopic world that you've kind of built in that university. Why did you choose that particular character?
Well, I think the part of it was like wish fulfillment in my my own head, and so many senior research figures are so very weighed down with concerns and pride and hierarchy that that having a senior researcher who was untethered by that was appealing. And I think that's part of you know, how transformation happens, is the senior researchers stepping away from the caps and gowns for a moment and sitting down at the table with the younger researchers, and everyone gets a bit of a voice.
Thank you. Katie, any additional thoughts?
So I think most of my reason for choosing a more senior researcher was to show that they were aware of the changes over the past 30 years, that they saw, because set 30 years into the future, that they'd seen research as it is now, and that they really saw the difference. And I think that's important, but also I think with younger researchers, you're not so weighed down by the past and how things always were, and you're more likely to ask, why are things like this, and can we change this?
Thank you. Frances, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think they've expressed it really well, yeah.
Okay,
but I think a lot of the essays had a lot of contributions from younger members of these utopic institutes, and that was interesting to hear, a desire to contribute.
Thank you. How do you choose your characters when you're writing your novels?
Oh, fiction is always based on experience. And I spent a lot of time disguising people I knew. So.
Thank you. I've been asking a lot of questions. Do you guys have any questions for each other while we're here? I mean, you've read each other's essays. I know we've kind of sat and chatted a little bit, but I wondered if you had any kind of additional thoughts or questions for each other. You don't have to.
I think my question for the crowd would be one of framing, because we have all these panels and discussions here today about the role of creativity in science, the role of proactivity in science, and I think what this bit is really about is the role of imagination in science. And like the judge's statement said, maybe our imaginations have kind of atrophied as a defense mechanism against further disappointment. So I guess, how can we reconnect with our imaginations in this context? How can we rekindle that? Yeah.
Please, Katie, go on.
I was going to say, I mean, two ways through scientific communication is how I personally really like rekindle my creativity, and also through discovery, like creating intellectual property and things like that. And I think that's something that universities could really assist with, is making sure that there aren't barriers for creativity with scientists, that there's actually, I don't know, just motivation for it as well, and that everyone's clear on the creative process.
Thank you. Evandro, same question around creativity and science.
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think we had a really good example earlier before, right? This interaction between artists and scientists. I think that can be extremely powerful, even if there is not exactly a related, collaboration as is, but actually just living among scientists in a research institute is something that is really empowering, because somehow when one learns how the other does its art, right, the technicalities, the context of it, one feels that it's also capable of doing something similar. I had a fortune in the past to work in a place like that, where scientists were invited, artists were invited to hang out during lunch, or to work in the same institute, even if they were not collaborating directly, but just to just talk about the art of doing it.
Do you want to name check that institute while we're here?
Yeah, it's the Santa Fe Institute. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we were able to just interact with them and see their, their techniques, their form of art. That was really inspiring.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I'm conscious of time, but do we have a little bit longer? I might open it up to the audience if we do. Okay, great. Does anyone have any questions for our panellists? There's a gentleman here in a white shirt. Do we have any more microphones moving around? Give us a second. Oh, go on, yeah, go on, shout out loud and I'll repeat it.
I don't mean to put you guys on the stand, you've already been asked a lot of questions, but the very basis of building something is that you need to readjust or tear down a few things. So in your original versions of Utopia, what have you toned down? Or what has been done away with? Yeah.
Thank you. Katie, can I ask you to start?
For me, I think one big thing is there's something about open data where data is shared across countries and across between different institutes that helps someone solve this mystery in within 1,000 words. So I think that open data is a big one.
Thank you. Miles, what did you delete in order to make your utopia?
Well, first of all, that's a brilliant question. But I very specifically deleted the academic ego, the pride and competition that shuts down research instead of supporting and collaborating and all that.
Thank you. Evandro?
Can you rephrase the question? I didn't...
Sure. To make a new utopia and make a new world, there are some things you need to destroy. So when you were building this imaginary utopia, what did you remove from what exists now?
Yeah, I think to me was the idea of removing the pressure for funding. So people just became more intellectually free. So they would just do whatever they wanted. And I think that's so important because I think all of us in our niche of scientists, at our day by day doing, we dream of other things, but we seldomly have the opportunity to actually bring that out. I mean, this competition is probably an example of that, right? And I think that's very, very important.
Thank you. Yeah, that was something I found really interesting about your essay in particular, Evandro, is you turn on the money tap in a way that you guys, I think, quite deliberately leave closed. There's still problems in your utopia, but I think they're of a different sort, maybe. Do we have time for... No, we have to end it. Okay. Please join me in congratulating our essay winners. Thank you very much.
So Carolina here has got some beautiful prizes. This is the vision of Marta et al. And so that's going to be your prize in addition to publishing and the financial prize. So Carolina. Thank you very much.